There are no kings in America. Ever. Today, the people showed Donald's fascist regime that there are no kings and tyrants and fascists in America, and the people are not with Donald Trump's regime. Welcome to Law and Society. Please subscribe. And let's talk a little bit about what happened. A more perfect union does not strive for perfection. It strives for a more perfect union. A more perfect. Our founding fathers had the wisdom to know that perfection is an ideological construct rather than a factual physical enterprise. Perfection is subjective, but the pursuit of a more perfect union is objective and full of the united purpose to be better than our current selves. And that is what we saw in the massive protests today. Bettering ourselves is a constant endeavor. It requires labor, learning, self-reflection, criticism, humility, lessons that failures teach, moments of success, and rare moments of triumph. Today was such a moment of triumph. Today, America was united, and America united to quilt our national fabric back together. Today's No Kings protests were a resounding success. Peaceful, massive, creative, fun. The largest display of our constitutional right to free speech and peaceful assembly in the history of our country. That's what America is about. Not Republican lies, not their fear-mongering about hate rallies, not their lies about Antifa and domestic terrorists. Americans neutralized all their dishonest talking points just by walking peacefully together with one message. In America, we don't have kings or tyrants who behave like kings. And remember, this is just the beginning. These protests will continue if Donald's tyranny continues. From extrajudicial killings in international waters to disappearing citizens without due process of law, to disenfranchising people and giving them no due process of law, even if they're not citizens, but they are lawful residents of the United States. And even if they're undocumented, they have the right to due process of law. And Donald Trump keeps denying them that. Keeps intimidating peaceful protesters with arbitrary presidential rules and live military drills like they were happening in California today while there were protests. From sabotaging our economy to depriving millions of Americans of basic health care. The longer these policies continue, the louder the American people will get. We will protest, we will be heard, and our republic will endure. There are just too many pro-democracy patriots for fascists to take over our republic. We will not let it happen. Today, people of all ages came out. Protests spilled over into an international movement because America is that important to the world order, and our allies see that our republic is currently under attack from within. It is heartening to see other countrymen join our cause to keep American democracy alive for future generations. Young people joined, for whom today was a renewal of the promise of America. Old people joined who fought and defeated fascism during World War II. Families with children, advocacy groups with their flags and inflatable frogs and other animals. We all joined our voices to keep our republic. We brought joy, creativity, and peace to our streets. Millions marched for peace and the preservation of our republic. Millions. And we did not have one incident of violence anywhere in the country. Protests like this are rare and extremely powerful when used against tyrannical regimes. Not one violent incident happened. Compare that to January 6, 2021. 140 plus injured officers, 5 dead as a result of it, and 1 insurrectionist dead as a result of it. But today, over 7 million Americans came out, and there have been no arrests made. There has been no violence whatsoever. There's been no hate, as Mike Johnson kept on egging and MAGA kept on trying to misbrand and spread disinformation about peaceful protests. Republicans have a lot to think about. If these protests persist, this is the public sentiment going into the 2026 midterms. Even the most gerrymandered maps won't help Republicans win congressional majority. The GOP has a lot to consider in light of these protests. First, they have to acknowledge that today's protests were peaceful, because they were. It's factual. No arrests were made. There was no unrest. Completely peaceful. They have to accept that the American people are not happy that the GOP cannot govern. But will the Republicans get the message? Will Donald's fascist regime even consider the massive opposition to his concepts? We kind of get the idea that he won't by what he posted on Truth Social, an AI-generated video of him flying a fighter and shitting on protesters. That is how his regime is looking at what happened today. But that is a grave mistake. As Dr. Heather Cox Richardson says, such a big turnout means businesses and institutions that thought they must cater to the administration to appeal to a majority of Americans will be forced to recalculate. So, at the very basic crux of it, these companies that have been capitulating are seeing millions come out peacefully, and they're seeing the weight of the people, we the people, and they have to really think, where do we go from here? We move forward. Americans move forward. We keep advocating for those who are being illegally detained. We let corporations know how we feel through our wallets and our protests. We keep standing up against Donald Trump's tyranny on American streets. We take him to court every time he overreaches into our basic freedoms. We keep calling him out as he sabotages our government and collapses our economy. We cannot let up. Now's the time to drive the message into American hearts. We are a republic. We are a nation of laws. We are a nation of immigrants. We are flawed, but we are a force for good in the world. That force comes from our diversity, not our fear of what we don't understand. And if we are to preserve this greatness of America, We have to reject MAGA's disinformation and Donald Trump's tyranny. I'll leave you with this. When I turned on my computer on January 6, 2021, I was expecting to see protests at the Capitol. I had even gone out and warned about the building of a seditious conspiracy before January 6th. I issued my first warning on November 10th of 2020, and I specified seditious conspiracy as being one of the principal charges that will come out of what we were witnessing. And two groups, Oath Keepers and Proud Boys, were convicted of seditious conspiracy. But I did not really expect what I was going to witness. Nothing could have prepared me for what we saw happen that day. I could not, it exceeded what I expected would happen. And I turned on my computer today with the same anticipation and a little bit of anxiety because I didn't want the events of January 6th to repeat again in any way. And I was pleasantly surprised to be reassured that most Americans are peaceful, law-abiding patriots. Nothing like January 6th happened. None of the rallies, as MAGA said they would be, were violent or riddled with hate. There were no clashes with the police. Today, our Constitution won. And it won because we stood up for it and used its awesome power to reject tyranny. We have to keep this up for as long as it takes. We have to empower our Constitution that gives us the power. It is a cyclical relationship that we are tied to, a sacred experiment that has been going on for nearly 250 years, and it is incumbent upon us, of all of us Americans and all pro-American forces around the world, to keep rallying for our republic. With that said, stay peaceful, stay joyful, remember to always speak out for the truth. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And I will talk to you very soon. I'm really happy today. Thank you, everybody.